Greetings and great day. It is a thankful Thursday. Thank you for joining us for today's Utopia Talk. I am Naya Powell, your host, and our topic today is Unplug to Recharge, Holistic Approaches to Stress Management. I'm Naya Powell, founder and CEO of Utopia Global Wellness, your digital health and wellness platform, elevating wellness and belonging in the workplace and beyond. And so we have with us here today our resident licensed mental health counselor and therapist, Leslie Stevens Tavera. Always great to
Hey
collab.
everyone.
Yes. Hey, Leslie, how's your day going?
Day is beautiful, Naya. It's so beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Love it. And it is a beautiful day. It's like already giving us somewhat summer vibes a little bit. It's nice and warm today here in North Carolina. So while we are giving it a minute or so, please share with us in the chat your name, where you're joining us from, and maybe even your company. So your name, where you're joining us from, and your company. So this is a really fitting topic because it is Stress Awareness Month. This
Yes.
month of April has so many amazing wellness holidays. So we really wanted to come to you with programming that's going to help you navigate that S word that affects all of us. There's no way to get around having stress, but there
Unfortunately
are ways.
not.
Unfortunately, not right. But there are ways for us to navigate stress and to do so by building our self-care toolkit, our strategies, our holistic approaches, and our mental health and wellness strategies. So before we dive all the way in, I always like to just take a quick moment to share what's new with Utopia Global Wellness. So I'm going to put in the chat so you can follow all things Utopia. We have some exciting things happening. So we are currently doing a Grow the Green partnership. This is a stress continuum partnership with North Carolina Central University and Duke University. And we have a 5-part series, which is free to the public. And so these are 5 different sessions around how you can stay in the green zone and not get into the red zone, which is chronic stress. The yellow zone is going to be more of the episodic. The green zone is going to be where you're managing your stress in a healthy manner. So we're going to talk about what's causing us stress. What is stress? How do we navigate stress? The effects of stress on the body, because we all need to know this, and ways that you can make sure that you're staying healthy and well and productive in the workplace. Also, we have built out even more of our coaching, wellness workshops, workplace wellness workshops, and group coaching for the workplace. We have a lot to choose from. You can see more in the link in the chat. And so, under our Utopia Institute of Mindful Leadership, really blending holistic and healthy workplaces with mindful leadership. So, we know that in the workplace, the healthier and happier your associates, the more productive, the better the ROI. Harvard does a
Absolutely.
study on this, 6-to-1 ROI. And Leslie, you work with a lot of professionals in your practice, also being the co-founder of Congruence Counseling. And so, why don't you just take a moment to unpack for us, what you see in terms of how stress is affecting us? What is
Oh
stress?
man. Yeah,
Yeah,
stress is an epidemic, right? Like
yes,
like you said at the top of the hour, stress affects all of us and it's really challenging to get around it. So I mean, in my practice, I see stress looking like, oh, I just have some worry, I just have some things in my mind that are cyclical, they're running all the time, and I can't sleep, to, oh my gosh, I'm facing burnout.
mm,
I don't even know what to do now. I
mm,
feel like I am being smothered. I feel like all the walls are closing in on me and I have no way to manage this. And I am spinning out of control right before my very eyes and I can't even catch it. So
mm,
stress runs the gamut, right? And
mm,
then
mm,
we experience it in our bodies. We
mm,
experience the physical manifestations of stress. And
mm,
prolonged stress, your body starts to shut down because the body wants to protect itself. So then it's like, hey, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And when your body tells you we're not doing it, it's not doing it.
mm.
So then when the body shuts down, then that creates a whole extra layer of stress on us because then we're sick. So stress is pervasive. Stress is everywhere. We experience stress in our bodies. We take on other people's stress. And we're in America, right? In this world with all this other stuff going on. So there's vicarious stress that we're picking up, and we're not even trying to. But just what we see and what we hear, we're picking up the energy, the stress of all that's around us.
Absolutely. And I think, it's also important to understand that the impact of stress, 80 to 90% of death and disease, I'll say it again for the people in the back,
Mm-hmm.
to 90% of death and disease is caused by stress. And so this is something that I'm passionate about. I guess because I am an entrepreneur, I've worked in corporate, I've been a corporate leader, I've worked with a lot of high powered senior executives in terms of the coaching work that we do. And I understand the compiling amounts of layers of demands, lack of time, the time poverty we suffer from, the lack of margin that we have to process. And so, whether you are a founder where you feel like all the pressure falls on you, or you are in a corporate environment, workloads have doubled and tripled. I was at visiting family last week, and I was talking to one of my aunts who's retired, but she works harder than because she's in all these committees. She's a leader in her community and a leader in her church and a leader in all these things. So she's working with scholarship funds and all these things. But I was telling her the workplace is different, Auntie, than when you were growing up in terms of the demands that are placed and the blurred lines, the lack of boundaries. And then you couple that with the some of the main reasons why people are stressed today have to do with workloads, also have to do with financial challenges, also have to do with family challenges, as you talked about, all have to do with things going on in the world that make people stable. And so, with blurring the lines of working from home, our kids are doing more from their technology and devices from home, not necessarily having the clear lines of delineation of when to cut off, when to stop and start. It seems like we take our devices all the way into bed, and the emails are still coming up, and the instant messages are still coming up. All of these things are not allowing our body to really have the time to reset and recharge. Right. So we want to talk about the unplug. How fitting is that? The only way we're going to recharge is we're going to have to unplug. We're going to have to create some healthy distance from all of these external factors, because when we don't, that cortisol releases in our body, and the cortisol, unfortunately, is the killer. What it does is it releases in our body when we're in fight or flight. What happens is, and we've talked about this before, it's causing the body to almost turn on itself. It's lowering your immune system. It's lowering your resilience. And so, you can share a little more about that. And then we want to talk about the three different types of stress, because as this is Stress Awareness Month, we really want to educate you on the types of stress as well and how that shows up in our bodies. But I'm going to punt it over to you, Leslie, before I get into the.
Absolutely. Right. And I can speak personally and professionally from this, and I use this in most of my platforms, right? I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2020, right? There's no history in my family. It's not a genetic thing. For me, it was a stress thing. And I had dug myself into such a deep, deep hole of anxiety and fear and worry and doubt that my body turned on itself, right? So before I knew it, my colon was trying to exit my body. Essentially, my immune system was no longer recognizing my colon as a part of the body, and it had identified it as a threat. And we understand that the gut is the second brain, and some people will call it the first brain. So in that regard, my brain was under attack, because I was pumping so much cortisol and so much adrenaline, and I did not, even as a therapist, I did not know how to pay attention to what my body was telling me. Right. I did not know how to pay attention and tune into what my body was telling me. So when it was telling me to slow down, I wouldn't listen. When it was telling me to unplug, I wouldn't listen. When it was telling me to rest and do less, God bless, I would not listen. And so after, and this wasn't over a month or a few days, this was years, right? So after years of prolonged stress, then I went through this health event, right? And the diagnoses. And so what that then taught me as I began to like research it for myself was that we absolutely have to unplug. We absolutely have to turn everything down so that we can, as you would say, like elevate, right, ourselves and elevate our own well-being and pour into ourselves. And it all comes from a state of rest, like legit, real homeostasis, right? Bring the body into full aligned rest so that it can then begin the healing process.
That's right. And as you were talking about, how your body responded to stress, right? In terms of ulcerative colitis. I knew I wasn't saying it right. Ulcerative colitis. We are seeing such an uptick of like gut health issues. We're seeing commercials about it all the time. And so, like you said, the digestive system, the stomach is the second brain. Some may say the first. Most of us, when we're stressed, we feel it right there in our center and in our core. And it made me think of this quote that I love. Stress is not what happens to us. It's our response to what happens. And response is something we can choose. So we are going to talk us through ways that we can choose healthier choices, habits, outcomes for our mind, spirit, body that affects every area of our life, which is why we love the word holistic. So I see that we have some people that have joined us today. Welcome, welcome. Please do share with us where you are joining us from. And also, hi, Eileen. Thank you. She's joining from Texas. Where you're joining us from, and what is one thing that is causing stress in your life? What is one thing that is causing stress in your life? And you can maybe even put two things that are causing stress in your life. All right. And at the end, we're actually going to bring it all together with a moment of mindfulness. But first, what I want to do is share 3 types of stress, because I think it's important for us to know the different types of stress that impact us. So there are 3 types of stress and health hazards. So the first type of stress, we would call that acute stress. Okay. So stress is most common and it presents most frequently. It's usually caused by reactive thinking, which is why we love to anchor ourselves, at Utopia Global Wellness, with even starting our sessions and inviting you to elevate your utopia. So feel free to grab your aromatherapy. Feel free to take a cleansing breath. Feel free to do that throughout this session. Why don't we just go ahead and take one now? Why don't we just take in a nice cleansing breath? We breathe in peace and harmony. Exhale stress and anxiety. One more time. Inhale peace and harmony. Exhale stress and anxiety. These are easy, simple ways that we can grab hold of our well-being in minutes with the breath. And I wanted to bring that in because words carry weight and power. So as we say the S word, our body responds. So I want to break this up by making sure that we're grounding ourselves, continue that breath work throughout this session. All right. So acute stress is something when we're ruminating, when we're thinking, when we're maybe thinking about upcoming events, we're anxious about that presentation. We're anxious about the conference. We're anxious about the summit. We're anxious about the bills that are coming. We're anxious about the relatives we have to host. We're anxious and thinking about so many things. And sometimes we're overthinking about maybe a mistake that we made. Hey, maybe we sent that email and it had a typo. Or maybe, we dropped the ball somewhere work-related. Hey, April, so good to see you. Elise, Daisy, Marsha, loving it. So I'm seeing family responsibilities, student responsibilities, managing your business. Oh, yes. We know that managing a business is 72% of entrepreneurs struggle with some sort of mental health challenge because of the stress, right? So thank you for sharing. So acute stress. And then I'm going to let you respond to that, the acute stress, Leslie, because I know you have some amazing mental health strategies for us to respond to the acute stress.
Yeah, certainly. So with the acute stress, right? So we've got acute and we've got chronic. So we deal with the acute, right? Those are these things that are coming on sort of daily that we may feel like we can't control, and things haven't spun out of control yet. It means like this thing is happening in the moment and I can take care of it in the moment. What
Mm-hmm.
you did initially, that breathing exercise, that grounding exercise, like you mentioned, so simple and the core of everything that we do to release stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to, all of us need to expand our breath, bring in that fresh, clean oxygen into our bodies and release that carbon dioxide. And in so doing, we are releasing that cortisol. We are giving ourselves a visceral signal that we are entering into rest and digest and getting out of fight, flight, or freeze. Now, when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, that is our sympathetic nervous system. And when we have an acute stressor, it signals that sympathetic nervous system and says, hey, quick, get some action about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we're trying to do is say, hey, this deadline, this isn't a lion, a tiger, or a bear. I don't have to run. I don't have to get action about myself in the way that my body thinks I have to get action about myself. Side
Yes.
note, I'm gonna come right back to it. When we talk about holistic, we're talking about the whole body, the whole being,
Yeah.
right? So we have a mental component, we have a physical component, we have a spiritual component, and all of it melds together. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to look at our bodies as such. And oftentimes we think, okay, why am I going through shortness of breath? Why do I feel like this panic? And your brain is asking your core that question. Your brain is asking your heart, hey, heart, what's happening? Hey, lungs, what's happening? And our
Mm-hmm.
being wants to respond to itself, but it's up to us to get it into alignment so that it can respond to itself. So, holistic. So, we want to bring into that breath and say, hey, now, this stressor, I want to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. I want to engage my rest and digest. And I want to be able to cue in and see this thing for what it really is. So before we get reactive to the thing that is causing us stress, we want to take a step back and we want to engage our mental capacity, calm it down and say, what is happening in this situation? Why am I suddenly feeling triggered? Why am I suddenly feeling out of sorts? Why am I suddenly feeling a rush of panic? And if
Mm-hmm.
you can begin to dissect that, work with a therapist, work with a coach to do it, if you can begin to dissect that, then you can deal with those acute stressors and they won't build up into chronic stressors, right? If you have a deadline and you have a panic attack, what's happening here?
Right.
Deadline, panic attack, what just happened?
Right.
But that's a trigger. You've been triggered because there was a deadline at some point in time in your experience and it caused grave anxiety and worry for you. And now your body, because it's keeping score, as the book says, it's reliving that experience over and over again. So
Right.
to deal with the acute stressors, you want to bring in that deep breathing. You want to engage the parasympathetic nervous system, and you want to begin to investigate what is happening. You want to make those links mentally, emotionally, so that you can stop that. I call it a moving train wreck. You can stop that moving train wreck.
Let's pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes. We don't have time for train wrecks, right? And that's the thing about it.
Right.
Think about this, right? I've coached executives where one shared that we use burnout a lot, and we do experience a lot of burnout. Her burnout lasted 3 months, and she's an executive at one of the largest tech companies. And we don't all get the opportunity to experience burnout period or 3 months and still maintain our job, right? I don't know about you, but I don't know that I've ever worked for a company where I felt confident that I would be supported through a 3-month period of not being able to function,
Right.
if I'm being honest, right? And at the end of the day, none of us want to burn out. But even more so, we cannot afford that. We can't
Can't
afford
afford
to
it.
be on shutdown. And that looks like different things for different people. Whether it is you're just not able to really do things as quickly, function as well, have the level of clarity, outcomes, show up for your family, all the things. So this is why we have to be proactive. This is why we
Yeah.
have to be intentional. We always say Utopia Living is intentional living because we want to show up as our healthiest and whole self. And putting boundaries in place is important. Learning
Mhm.
how to say no is important. Blocking your calendar so you have time for your walk, your lunch break, a breather, a yoga class with Utopia, or a walk in your neighborhood, whatever that looks like. The thing about it is sometimes we've convinced ourselves that we have to power through and go, go, go to get it done. But if
Yeah.
we know how to unplug, to reset and recharge, we're going to give ourselves so much more mileage for that day in terms of productivity, in terms of our temperament, in terms of our cortisol levels, in terms of our health and our body, so we don't end up with dis-ease, which is that red. So I
Yeah.
am going to share the other types of stress. Please do share with us as I'm sharing the other types of stress. How do you see stress show up in your body, in you, in your temperament? How does it make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about acute stress. I'm going to give some short-term effects of acute stress. So it's transient emotional distress. Sometimes it can be a combination of anger, irritability, anxiety, and depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us are feeling these things, which is why mental health, and especially even mental health in the workplace, is coming up so often. We're even seeing the extremes of this, from road rage, and then when it gets even more out of control, unfortunately, we are living in a society where mass shootings are happening
Mm-hmm.
somewhere almost every week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is all a build up of, like, just a compressor waiting to burst. So we don't need to get, and of course, some of us would never go that far. But the other levels, they're still internalizing. It's still the snappiness. It's still the arguments. It's still the rage. It's still all the things. And we don't know how, whatever that output looks, how it's going to be responded to, because it could be the output to somebody else that is already at 10 as well.
Think
So,
about that, Naya. Exactly. Right. We're heightened, then the other person's heightened.
yeah,
Both of us are heightened. And then it's
yeah,
like this big combustion,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because of stress.
yeah.
We're under stress.
I will tell you, this happened to me a few weeks ago. I was headed to a yoga class,
Mm-hmm.
so I could stress decompress. And as I pulled into the stoplight, um, and I didn't go through the stoplight. I stopped. Um, I made a little bit into the line. There was a biker that was coming, about to cross the intersection,
Mm-hmm.
and literally, I guess for him, and he wasn't even near in front of my car. He was still approaching while I had stopped. I guess it wasn't enough for him, and he just went ballistic and was calling me all kinds of names. And I was just like, this is like so, it's so crazy that someone could be that angry. And you're like, over what? The light is yellow to red. I stopped. Maybe I didn't stop far back enough for his
Right.
light, but there is no reason. And then a lot of times you'll hear people say, that action could not have ever made you that mad. You were already mad. And literally, I was just astonished at the
Mm-hmm.
level of anger that was like coming out. And it just punctuated where we are in society in terms of anger, anxiety, rage, which all links to stress,
Yeah.
how we're handling or not handling our stress, and mental well being because of it. And that's what I saw. And this is a person that's out on a bike. So they're 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 healthier than many. My goodness.
But it goes to show you, all of us are under a strain, a type of a strain, right?
Right. So yes, so moving right along. Also, we'll see transient, this is still acute, how it shows up in the body. Transient muscular distress. So that's tension, that's
Tension.
headache, that's back pain, that's neck pain, that's
Mm-hmm.
jaw pain. All of these can also lead to pulled muscles and tendons. And you know what? Have you all noticed the older we get, the more it's like, gosh, all I did was stand up. Why is my ankle hurting? What is
You
happening?
pull a muscle standing up.
Oh my God. Thank you, April. Mental shutdown to the point that the person is non-functional. Absolutely. That's
Mhm.
true. That's burnout there right there. Like, it's just like you don't even have anything else. Because, and Leslie said this earlier, your body will just say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing anything else. Won't have anything else to give. And that's it. And I know I have experienced my own personal burnout where it just takes everything to do things that I could whip through just like that. And that's that's another sign, right?
And I always say this, Naya, if you don't take the rest will take you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the body's going to tell you what it wants and what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't listen, it's going to take it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It does. And it shuts us down. So as you said, we take the rest or the rest takes us. So we don't want that. So we're going to learn how to unplug. Maybe you think about how late are you all working? Please share with us in the chat. How late are you typically working? I know, we're on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook, but most of the people that join Utopia Talks are executives. They're HR professionals, and we're, focused on workplace well-being and beyond, right? So how late are we working? What time are we shutting down? And I want you to pull out your journals, and I want you, this is a coaching session as well. I want you to be thinking about what modifications are you going to be taking so you can unplug to recharge, because we can offer these coaching tips and suggestions and strategies, but at the end of the day, they're only as powerful as your ability to employ them into your life, right? These wellness strategies are only as powerful as your ability to employ them in your life. I see a LinkedIn guest said, stress shows up when I start to worry, influencing my emotions and impacting various aspects of my daily life, including routine, task, and sleep quality. Absolutely. It robs us of our ability to rest if we don't get control of it. And then Yolanda said 12 to 14 hours. Is that how many hours you're working, Yolanda? I'm going to read through a few more of those. Thank you all for sharing. So also, we will see acute stress show up in transient stomach, gut, and bowel problems, heartburns, acid, stomach, flatulence, diarrhea, constipation. The gut is our second brain.
It's the second brain.
So when you are feeling stress and you feel it in your gut, you feel it in your digestive system, you feel it, the fact that people have acid reflux so much and we're having all of these gut health conversations, that is a direct reflection of the stress levels. And change requires change. I have said that 3 times today because it's so true. If we want something different, my question to you is, what are you willing to do different?
Mm-hmm. And let me add this, Naya, as we talk about the gut health, right? When our bodies are in a state of acute or chronic stress, when we are stressed, the gut stops working. The body isn't designed to how do I say this? Your body isn't designed to digest when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, right? So old times, running from a lion, and tiger, and bear, your body's not going to be digesting. All of your energy needs to go to your extremities because you need to run, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we experience stress now, our bodies act like we're running from lions and tigers and bears, right? And all of our energy goes to our extremities. You ever notice, I'm just jittery. Oh, I've got so much anxiety. Oh, I got to just do something. Let me just get up and walk. Let me do something. That is one indicator at that time, your stomach, your intestines, they are not in digesting mode. And if you try to eat, that's why many of us lose our appetite. If you try to eat at that time, your digestive system is going to be working overtime to digest because you don't have energy to digest. And then you begin to break down the cellular walls of your digestive tract. So I'm just saying, take that with however you want, right? But if you are in hyper anxiety and you don't have an appetite, there's a reason you don't have an appetite. And if you force yourself and let me eat sugar, let me eat this, let me eat gluten, let me eat all these things that your body has a hard time digesting anyway, it's working double and triple time. Be cognizant.
Yeah. And we just did a session with North Carolina Central and Duke prior to this on mindful eating. And your body, when you're stressed, it is going to crave salt and sugar and all of these things. And it's also going to tell you you're hungry when you're not. So one of the things I'm going to recommend that we incorporate is the breath work, taking cleansing breaths. You can be anywhere. You can be driving. You can be in a meeting. You can be presenting and taking a breath between your slides. Make it a practice so you're oxygenating your organs. So you're allowing the blood vessels in your neck going to your head to deconstrict, and water does that. But we also take pills to do that. But what if you could not pop a lot of pills? What if you could drink water and just, how about that? I'd rather do that. Because because everything we put in has a cause and effect, right? So what are the pills doing to our body? The pills are doing stuff too. So
Right.
saying
Because then the pills overwork your liver.
there you go, and affect your gut lining. So there's always something. So we want to stay in the green zone as much as possible. So I just put in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put some of these here. I know this is a lot, but I want you to see all of the short-term effects of acute stress that we just talked about. So you can see those right on the screen, everything we talked about, right? And then we get into elevated blood pressure and things of that nature, constipation, stomach issues, all of the things that many of us are dealing with, right? So we don't want to be there. Who wants to be there? Doesn't feel good, right? And being bloated, that's not cute either. So it ain't cute.
Right.
So the other forms of stress that we want to get into are also episodic acute stress. So people who typically have acute stress whose lives present frequent triggers of stress. So two main personality types that we, especially this first one, guess what personality type it is? A lot of times.
Type A.
Oh yeah. We see this in leaders, high achievers, high achievers. So it's very common that, the type A has, and I think I'm a type A, B, depending on my scenario. In a work environment, I'm go, high performer, get it done. But let me tell you, when it's time to chill and relax, I know how to do that. And somebody else can take the lead. Thank you very much. Please and thank you. But you know what? I feel very fortunate and very blessed that I do know how to relax, and that of my
good balance
wellness, because I have these practices of journaling in the morning, and using my aromatherapy, and playing my soft music, and soaking in the tub, and lighting a candle. So these have become, some of my daily habits. I do a coaching session called 10 Daily Habits for Peak Productivity. These are not chores. These are things that you enjoy. They kind of energize you. They're also great ways to maintain your stress levels, right? So I want you to be thinking about what are some of your daily habits or go-tos that you can make more consistent daily habits for you to combat your stress. All of these things that are my 10 daily habits help me to show up as my best self, but they help also for me to de-stress. And music is a powerful paradigm shifter that can shift your mindset, your stress levels within seconds, if not minutes. So you can have it playing slowly in the background. So I can tell you want to add a few things there. So give us a little bit of your thoughts here on the episodic stress.
And while we wait for some folks to put some things in the chat, as we talk this through, I want us to also acknowledge, like, we have to own our own experiences. One might have a thought, oh, well, I can't do that because my boss is going to tell me, or I can't do that because my partner needs, or, well, if I did that, then so-and-so is going to tell me about. We have like this consciousness of what somebody else is going to say that comes against our ability to rest, or our ability to take care of ourselves, or our ability to slow down, or our ability to not answer emails 9 o'clock at night, right? That is something that we also have to deal with, right? Again, deal with what it looks like for you to be in relationship with your partner, your boss, your family member, and they may not believe in or respect the fact that you want to take more rest. That is also going to be an internal work for us to deal with and do while we take on these healthy habits for ourselves. Own our own experiences. Nobody's in your body but you. Nobody's in your experience but you. No one knows the depth of what you're going through but you. And you've got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, reasonable boundaries, I believe, will be respected. And if there are reasonable boundaries for you to stay healthy and alive and not push yourself into stroke and heart disease, if those reasonable boundaries, maybe it is that, you shut off at 6:30 and maybe you check a couple emails mid-evening after you've had dinner with your family, after you've had some time to unwind, after you had a moment for yourself to decompress, whatever that means for you in a healthy manner. Go for a walk, read a book, sip some tea, catch up with phone calls with the people in your life, whatever that is. Maybe you do, give yourself, 30 minutes or 15 minutes to check for any urgent emails. But at the end of the day, these are kind of things that I had to talk through and coach myself about being in very demanding, fast-paced environments, corporate, even as an entrepreneur. If it's 8 o'clock and I respond, I want to ask you, unless it's a presentation happening the next day or the next morning, otherwise, what's going to happen? Because the rest of the people that you're replying all to are likely sleep in the bed with their family, not likely to respond. And then we start to perpetuate that behavior, and we're showing people how to treat us, right?
Right.
So you have to find out what that balance is for you. Maybe you have 2 nights a week that you're working a little later, but it still needs to have a cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear from you all. What are some of the things that you have started doing to create healthy boundaries, if you've done any? If not, we'll make sure. Our goal is to make sure that by the time this call is over, that you have some, right? So some of the things that you can do for treatment is most often are going to be looking at your lifestyle personality characteristics. These are oftentimes ingrained in habitual habits. And so it's not that something is wrong. We just want to think about, what are our lifestyle patterns? Are we always rushing? Are we always on the go? Are we always adding more to our plate? Again, you're going to hear me talk about boundaries to prevent burnout, is knowing how to put boundaries into place, knowing how to say no, knowing how to say, I would love to, but please ask me again. My plate is full. I'm fully committed at this time. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to attend. I just probably gave you 3 or 4 ways that you can say no, and people understand and they respect it. And if they don't, then maybe that's a situation where it's time to look at other options. Maybe you're flexible when you can be, but it doesn't mean every single time. And maybe it's no longer a good fit. All right. Then we have chronic stress. Chronic stress is the most harmful stress. If left untreated for a long period of time, it can cause irreversible damage to our physical health and deteriorate our mental health. So, for example, things that might cause chronic stress may include long-term poverty, repeated abuse, unemployment, dysfunctional families, poor work environments, which is why we like to partner with work environments, because a lot of work environments are not the healthiest, right? So also substance abuse, unhappy relationships, and just anything that can cause significant chronic stress. We want to be very mindful of this. This is not something that we need to try to live with, because our bodies will not allow us to continue to live with this.
Right.
Thoughts,
Right.
Leslie?
Absolutely. When we get to that chronic stress level, then we are reactive, right? Then we have to take the medication, and then we have to get a surgery, or we have to do those things because we allowed the stress to impact our body so negatively that now we have to do other things to get it back to a type of center. So the hope is that, as one who's gone through chronic stress and has had to mend from that we don't allow ourselves to get there. But then when we've gotten there, there's always redemption, if you will. Just because you've gone through chronic stress and you've had a health event or something like that because of it, doesn't mean that you can't come back to good homeostasis. But that means you do have to take more rest than most, probably, right? That means you have to recover very well. You have to protect your time very well. So if you have gone through chronic stress, it's not the end all be all. You can come back from that, but it really means intentionality to take care of yourself very, very well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, what are some of the things that you did? Could you share with us that your stress levels caused UC for you?
Yep.
Affecting, yeah. And so what are some of the things, so people can hear some practices?
Diet change. Number one, I had to change my diet. I did change my diet for 4 years, even during pregnancy. For 4 years, I switched to an anti-inflammatory diet. So no wheat, no gluten, no processed foods, no refined sugars, so pretty much meat and veg, no complex carbs, so that my gut could heal. A lot of bone broth. It's good for you. So that my gut could heal, right?
Yeah.
And rest, whereas the statistic was saying, oh, if you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you're fine. That first year, I was getting 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night. 9 to 10 hours of sleep. I moved my own look. I'm an entrepreneur, so there's some privilege and flexibility in my scheduling, but I moved my schedule to accommodate me and my rest schedule. I started later so that I could have an easy, slow morning and I didn't have to rush and get up and go into work and be in the fray, right? I could go into work on my own time. I decided to go telehealth at this time. So I didn't have to like be front facing with people as a therapist and an empath. There's a lot of energy there and I internalize a lot of energy, right? So being able to do telehealth was really helpful for my own health to create some separation and some distance between my clients and I and the energy that goes on in the therapeutic process. So I had to make some changes that were very much so all about my health and healing so that I could recover and recover well.
That's good. So I hear you. I hear a couple things that you've said. You establish boundaries.
Yep.
All right. You also prioritized your self-care.
Yep.
In terms of self-care, in terms of your eating, your schedule. I knew you at the time that you went into this space of ulcerative colitis. And I also know people in my family that have struggled with that as well. And so you were a very healthy eater, or drinker, because
drinker, right? Prior to I was a vegan, but let's talk about the stress of that, right? Eating raw fruits and veg all the time. That's extreme. I'm a type A personality. When I do something, I do it hard. Let me tell you, that's extreme, right? So I thought I was being healthy, but my extreme viewpoint of what health was also causing stress in my body. You wouldn't think it, right? I eat salads every day. Don't eat roughage every day. It's not good for you. It's good to cleanse out the other stuff, but it's not good as a way of life. Right? It's not good to eat fibrous things all the time. I'm cleansing myself. I cleanse myself right out of some colon lining. Let me tell you.
Yes. Every time I saw Leslie, she was sipping on this warm.
But that's what was warm.
Her food for the day. I was like, wow, she's disciplined. So, but this is something I want to talk about really quick because I've known you now for, I don't know, it's been a joy.
Like 5 years, I think 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. I would have never thought you were type A.
I'm an internalizer. That's the thing. I don't externalize it. You're not going to see me verbally say, do this, do that, do this, do that. But mentally, I am do this, do that, do this, do that, do this. And I think that's probably also what causes the disruption. I historically haven't had a safe place to put it, to get the energy out. So I'm just bringing in all of that energy and I'm locking it up right inside of me with no place to go.
So I think that that's a really important call out in terms of our unplug to recharge holistic approaches to stress management is the release.
Yeah,
and the release
have to release
a lot of different things. The release
of
control, the release of internalizing things, release things that we're holding in. And so I grew up in a very communicative family. So people just very direct communicators. So people just say what's on their mind. I'm accustomed to that. I'm used to that. I'm comfortable with that. Everybody's not. And from my coaching work, and this is important to even know personality types and communication styles in work life and at home, because everybody doesn't respond well to that. But what I will say is that it makes me a healthier person. And I'm the type of person that I understand that if I am in a dynamic or relationship where respectfully, if I'm not able to share how I'm feeling and I feel shut down, I feel it in my digestive system. I feel it in my gut. I feel so imbalanced, and it really affects my body. And so this is also about self-awareness too. To understand when we're in situations that are stressful, how are we processing them, and what are some of the things that we can do to process them in a more healthy manner? And so it is even learning better communication techniques and strategies, so we don't go from 0 to 100, meaning we don't say anything and we internalize it, so it's eating us up inside. Or when we do say something, we're exploding and we are very controversial or confrontational in a very volatile way. That's not healthy either. So even learning how to language things is another part of stress management.
It is, absolutely. And I love what you mentioned. Like everything has to be about release because stress is energy, right? And we can use that energy for the quote good, or the energy can be to our how do I demise is not the right word, but or it can be for the quote bad, right? So when the energy gets inside of us and it's literally eating us up from the inside, before then, when it's an acute stressor, what you're talking about, communication skills, releasing it, getting that energy out, it's going to be so necessary. And putting yourself in relationship with safe people who respect that, right? You know, we can snowball into this, and I won't, but we have to allow ourselves to put ourselves into relationship with safe people who respect that and give us that space to do so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think we'll do a follow-up segment really on healthy communication styles, right? Because a lot of times we don't come equipped with the language that we need, right? And so when people don't have the language, they don't say anything. Or when they do, it's out of a reaction. Another way to unplug to recharge, a holistic stress strategy, is to also, I would say, just really learn how to navigate in not only in our communication, but give me 1 second. I just had my other point up. But just even being able to know how to delegate and empower others. And, when we think about a lot of people that do watch the Utopia Talk and engage in the Utopia Talk are in positions of leadership or management or business ownership or just high level, executives in a corporate space. Sometimes, again, that control, releasing. We have to unplug and release to recharge. And so what can we empower others with? And what can we release off of our plate? We need to be thinking about that. And I think it's that control factor sometimes that doesn't allow us at times to get the support that we need, where we're not taking it all on.
Absolutely. And we have to think about long term for that, right? Not just in the moment, this is what has to get done. Okay, if I want to have health and longevity, I'm going to have to begin to take these practices into consideration and do these practices and engage other people and teach and train for the delegation process. Because if we think it's just going to be this, I'm going to give it to you, you're going to go, we're fooling ourselves. All this has to be intentional and strategic and a long run game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we were, last form of stress we talked about was chronic stress. And I do want to highlight that chronic stress is really almost like a lifestyle stress, maybe how we grew up, really dysfunctional spaces, relationships, and things like that. If you're dealing with that, I really want you to take note seriously, because a lot of ways this shows up sometimes is it can kill us through suicide. Or violence, or homicide, or heart attack, or stroke, or even cancer. And the stroke, heart attack, and cancer, that is so pervasive in our country. And it's sad, right? But this means that our body is under so much stress that our heart can't even handle it.
Right.
And that sounds so extreme, but who knows people that have had strokes and heart attacks and that have left here way earlier than we ever would have imagined.
Right.
40s, 50s, sometimes even late 30s.
Yeah, 30s. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this is what we have to make sure that we are unplugging to recharge. And so I am going to provide us with a summary here of 5 ways that you can incorporate stress management strategies holistically. We talked about some of them, but just to repunctuate those: establishing boundaries, setting clear boundaries in your personal and work life. Who has set some clear boundaries, or who's going to after today's session? One of the things that I do as a boundary, and I think it's just for my own mental wellness, is I put my phone on do not disturb during sleeping hours. So it's not pinging and dinging, and I'm a light sleeper. And just so I can have some clear boundaries, right? Where everything's still not coming into my personal space, my bedroom, my nightstand, 10, 11, 12. I can turn over my phone if I'm still awake and see anything that's urgent if I'm still awake, but I'm not lending myself over to every ding and ping and demand. Also, we can practice mindfulness meditation. We will do a moment of mindfulness at the end, but mindfulness is really the practice of being present. So just taking that cleansing breath like we did earlier, doing a few more of those, maybe you give yourself 2 minutes, a couple times a day to reset and replenish. This is also a way to be more responsive versus reactive. Mindfulness also can heal the brain. It's been effective in terms of those that have had concussions. It really helps to reestablish the nerve endings that get frayed from multitasking. So I want us to be mindful of the benefits of mindfulness. So I'll just go ahead and pop these in to the chat as I go through them. And then engaging in physical activity. Going for a walk, fresh air, vitamin D is a game changer. It can be just as effective as antidepressants. Okay? Just a simple walk, fresh air, and sunshine and that vitamin D can be just as effective as antidepressants. Why not try it, you all? Why not try getting into exercise and see how it makes you feel, right? And if you can even double that benefit by getting outside, let's do it. It's also a mood booster, increases energy, and boosts healthy sleep. All right, I'm just going to keep adding these. And then we also have prioritizing, as we've talked about all throughout today, our self-care, making yourself a priority with activities that bring you joy, whether it is curling up and reading a good book, watching a movie, dancing, spending time with friends. One of my faves is brunch with my friends. So, whatever that is, maybe it's going to church, whatever that is. Leslie, you want to add anything here before I give the last one?
I think you've got a great list here. I would ditto all of these.
Okay. And then delegate and empower others, which is what I just shared, right? So listen, everybody didn't get hired on your team that can't do anything. We all have one or two, right? That you're like, I might as well do it myself. That's real sometimes, y'all, but everybody's not in that boat, not everybody. And then if you are dealing with that a lot, maybe schedule one-on-one and maybe look at ways that this person may need more support in order to show up better. So sometimes we have to pause and take a little step back before we can leap forward, but put that support in place. Yep. And lean into that support of delegation with others.
Mm-hmm. And think of the long run when you're doing that delegation. Think of the long run. Think of the long run.
Think of the long run. So Leslie, I know you have your recap will summarize your mental health strategies.
Yes. Okay. So number one, own your own experience. Other people don't know what it's like for you to live in your body. So it's your own experience. So it is for you to take care of, for you to honor, for you to own. And the chief relationship that you will have in this life is your relationship with yourself. So honor that and own your own experience. Rest, get adequate sleep. Like Naya and I are talking about, set those nightly boundaries, limit the access to you, do what you need to do to get sleep at night at the proper times. And the body goes through a lot of resets at night. The liver resets between 1 and 3. If you're awake, it can't reset as well. So 1 and 3 a.m. So allow your body the chance to reset. Be cognizant of when you're overextended. Being overextended can lead to burnout. So tune into those moments where your fuse is shorter, where you have less patience and you feel like the walls are closing in on you and you need to escape. Go ahead and take that as a signal that it's time to take another direction. Be aware or bring into awareness of what is triggering you on a consistent basis, because triggers provide information and that information is going to help with your healing process. And identify what you are resisting in life, right? So resistance creates stuck energy, much like internalizing creates stuck energy. So when you're resisting something and when you're internalizing something, provide space for that release. If you're resisting and if you're internalizing, provide space for that release to occur so that you can get that stagnant energy out of your body and not cause stress and distress on any of your organs or any of your bodily systems, on your mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. So we also want to say another way to unplug to recharge is to really get away so you can go up. And that's an opportunity that we offer with Utopia Global Wellness, which is to retreat with us. We have 2 retreats this year. One is Belize, and that is coming up. July 1st through the 6th is going to be incredible. This is a women's leaders and founders retreat. We're going to spend 6 days to relax, replenish, recharge, restore. We're going to have everything from mindful morning, wellness workshops, mindset workshops, as well as spa treatments, oceanfront breath work,
Yes.
and even some professional development. So it's going to give you your holistic reboot that you need while building amazing community. So check us out. I'll make sure I put the link in the chat and also the link for all things Utopia. And so you'll find that right in there. We're going to have our next Q&A call on Saturday, the 20th of April. And that's going to be at either 9:30 or 10:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. And so join us for that if you're interested in learning more. And then Bali is September 13th through the 20th. So share with us some of your major takeaways from today. Love to hear it. I'll go ahead and put in the chat how to follow all things Utopia. And we're just going to close out with a mindful breath of mindfulness and gratitude, and something that you can continue to do each and every day. So I'm going to invite you to place one hand on your heart, one hand on your abdomen, and taking a cleansing breath. Again, breathing in peace, beauty, harmony, and healing. Exhaling and releasing any tension, stress, or anxiety. Taking in another cleansing breath of health, well-being, and vitality. And exhaling all things that do not serve us. I'll read a final quote. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance, by Eckhart Tolle. So I want to thank you all for joining us for our Utopia Live Well lunch break. Make it a Utopia Living Day. Follow us in all things at All Things Utopia by the link below, and we'll see you next time. Make it
Take great care. Be well. Bye.